Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone.
The dawn of the 19th century in America was a period marked by rapid expansion, burgeoning ambitions, and a fervent belief in manifest destiny. The ideology that it was the United States' divine right and duty to expand westward across the North American continent. This conviction fueled not only economic pursuits and territorial conquests, but also sowed the seeds of profound suffering and injustice for the Native American nations who had inhabited these lands for centuries. Among the most harrowing manifestations of this expansionist zeal was the Indian Removal Act of 1830, a piece of legislation that would forever alter the lives of Native American tribes and etch a grim legacy of displacement and cultural devastation into the annals of American history. In the early 1800s, the southeastern United States was home to several thriving Native American nations, including the Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Seminole, often referred to collectively as the Five Civilized Tribes, due to their adoption of various aspects of European American culture. These nations had established robust societies with systems of governance, education, and economic enterprises that rivaled those of their white neighbors. However, their lands were coveted by white settlers eager to exploit the rich agricultural potential, particularly for cotton cultivation, and to capitalize on the promise of prosperity. This desire for land and resources created an atmosphere of increasing tension and hostility, where Native American rights and sovereignty were systematically undermined. The ascension of Andrew Jackson to the presidency in 1829 marked a pivotal moment in the trajectory of Native American relations with the U.S. government. Jackson, a staunch advocate of westward expansion, had long harbored deep-seated prejudices against Native Americans, viewing them as obstacles to progress and civilization. His military campaigns against various tribes, notably the Creek and Seminole, had already demonstrated his ruthless approach to indigenous resistance. Jackson's presidency provided the political leverage needed to formalize and legitimize the forced removal of Native American tribes from their ancestral homelands. In 1830, under Jackson's urging, Congress passed the Indian Removal Act, authorizing the federal government to negotiate treaties that would relocate Native American tribes to lands west of the Mississippi River. While the act ostensibly promoted voluntary exchanges of land, the reality was far grimmer. The power imbalance between the federal government and Native tribes, coupled with coercion, deceit, and manipulation, rendered these treaties anything but voluntary. The underlying objective was clear: to open millions of acres of fertile land to white settlers and economic exploitation. The Cherokee Nation, in particular, mounted a formidable resistance against the encroaching threat to their sovereignty. Under the leadership of Principal Chief John Ross, the Cherokee sought to defend their rights through legal means, culminating in the landmark Supreme Court case Worcester versus Georgia in 1832. The court ruled in favor of the Cherokee, recognizing their sovereign status and invalidating Georgia's attempts to impose state laws within Cherokee territory. However, this legal victory was rendered moot by President Jackson's blatant disregard for the ruling, allegedly responding, "John Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it." The failure of legal resistance left the Cherokee and other tribes vulnerable to the relentless pressure of removal policies. In 1835, a small faction of the Cherokee, lacking legitimate authority, signed the Treaty of New Echota, ceding all Cherokee lands east of the Mississippi in exchange for compensation and land in present-day Oklahoma. Despite widespread opposition from the majority of the Cherokee people, the U.S. government used this treaty as justification for forced removal. The resulting forced migration, known as the Trail of Tears, stands as one of the most tragic and inhumane episodes in American history. Beginning in 1838, thousands of Cherokee men, women, and children were rounded up, often at gunpoint, and forced to embark on a grueling journey to the designated Indian Territory. The march spanned over 1,000 miles through treacherous terrain, harsh weather, and inadequate supplies. Disease, exposure, and starvation ravaged the displaced population, leading to the deaths of an estimated 4,000 Cherokee, nearly a quarter of their entire population. Other tribes suffered similar fates under the Indian Removal Act. The Choctaw were the first to be forcibly removed, enduring a brutal winter trek in 1831 that one observer described as a trail of tears and death. The Creek faced violent conflict and betrayal during their removal, while the Chickasaw were compelled to sell their lands under unfair terms. The Seminole uniquely engaged in prolonged armed resistance in Florida, resulting in the costly and bloody Seminole Wars. Yet many were ultimately captured and deported. The consequences of the Indian Removal Act extended far beyond immediate suffering and displacement. The forced relocation shattered tribal structures, disrupted cultural practices, and severed sacred connections to ancestral lands. The Indian Territory, promised as a permanent homeland, soon became encroached upon as westward expansion continued unabated. The economic, social, and psychological toll of removal left lasting scars on Native American communities, undermining their ability to rebuild and thrive. Moreover, the Indian Removal Act set a precedent for future U.S. policies toward Native Americans, embedding a pattern of broken treaties, land seizures, and systemic marginalization. It underscored the prioritization of economic interests and racial superiority over justice and human dignity. This dark chapter also reflects the broader narrative of American expansion, one that was often driven by exploitation, violence, and a disregard for the rights of indigenous peoples. In the modern era, the legacy of the Indian Removal Act continues to reverberate. Efforts to acknowledge and redress these historical injustices have gained momentum, with commemorations, educational initiatives, and legal battles aimed at honoring Native American resilience and sovereignty. Yet, the wounds of the past remain palpable, serving as a somber reminder of the human cost of manifest destiny and the need for ongoing reflection and reconciliation. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 is more than a historical event. It is a testament to the enduring struggle for justice, recognition, and survival faced by Native American nations. It compels us to confront uncomfortable truths about America's foundation and to honor the strength and spirit of those who endured unimaginable hardship. In remembering this tragic chapter, we are called to learn, to empathize, and to strive for a more equitable and compassionate future.